really bright. Good morning. Good morning, Springfield Public Schools. Woo! Welcome to the 2021 Back to School Convocation. It's really great to usher the school year in this way. Once again, having to cancel the program last year because of, well, you know. But we're here today, and we made it. My name is Azel Kavan. I'm the Chief Communications Officer for Springfield Public Schools, and it's my honor to serve as MC for the program today, our Back to School Convocation. Together we go far. Our live event is taking place here in the state-of-the-art auditorium here at the Conservatory of Art School right on State Street. It is beautiful. I hope that the broadcast shows the magnificence of this auditorium. And I want to say thank you to Principal Kelly, to your accommodating staff, and to your hospitable student ushers for hosting us for this district-wide event here today. I'd like to recognize the dignitaries seated on the stage. They are school committee members Christopher Collins, who's chairman of the school committee, school committee woman Latonia Monroe Naylor, school committee person attorney Peter Murphy, school committee woman Maria Perez, the chair of the school committee is, of course, the Honorable Mayor Dominic Sarno, Superintendent of Schools Daniel Warwick, Assistant Superintendent of Schools Lydia Martinez, the newly installed President of the Springfield Education Association, Tracy Little Sasanecki, President of the Springfield Federation of Paraprofessionals, Catherine Mastronardi. And I am especially excited to recognize our keynote speaker for today, who will be formally introduced later on in the program, the President of College of Our Lady of the Elms, Dr. Harry E. Dumais. To start the program, please rise wherever you are in your space for the presenting of the colors by Central High School ROTC under the leadership of Chief Buteman, followed by the national anthem performed by a conservatory student, Kayla Staley.
Colors, hope. Left, face.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can't you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we've watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Forward. March.
How about another round of applause for our cadets? And for our wonderful rendition of the national anthem by Kayla Staley. And please be seated here in the auditorium and where you are, wherever you are watching. All across the city, we have about 4,000 staff members watching this broadcast today, so welcome to all of you. But here, let's make some noise in the house. Let's hear it from the conservatory. All right. Listen, we want you to send us your convocation photos, your selfies. We want everyone to know that we may not be in the same building, but we are in this together. So take your photos, take your selfies. Please send them to us. We'll post them on our social media. You can email them to springfieldmaschools@gmail.com. Use the hashtag SPS Convocation. All right, and now let's begin the remarks portion of our program. He has come to be known as the People's Mayor, but of course we continue to dub him the Education Mayor because of his commitment to the students and staff of Springfield Public Schools. In the wake of COVID-19, while schools were closed, Mayor Sarno invested over $1 million to ensure that the ventilation systems in every school, in every classroom, were upgraded to exceed the ventilation standards required not only by DESE, but also by the American Society of Heating, Refrigerating, and Air Conditioning Engineers. And this was but one of several measures that the mayor prioritized to help ensure the health and safety and the continuation of teaching and learning in the midst of our school closure last year. And even as we begin school next week, Mayor Sarno and the entire school committee have prioritized funding for social, emotional, and counseling supports for students as they return to full-time learning in the midst of a global pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, the Education Mayor, the Honorable Dominic Sarno.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning. Are we ready to rock and roll? Come on, this is the Conservatory of the Arts here. I need a little more enthusiasm. I want to thank Principal Ryan Kelly, a.k.a. Mr. Soccer, for hosting us. And Ms. Staley, that was a beautiful rendition of the Star Spangled Banner. Thank you very much, and I love your new hairdo, too. Let's give her a big round of applause. And I always say Central in the House, the junior ROTC, they do a tremendous job. And if you noticed, Every one of those junior ROTC members was a lovely young lady with one gentleman, lucky a man who I met earlier today. Let's give them a big round of applause. To my colleagues on the, Azelle, you're absolutely right. This is a little rickety here. To my colleagues on the school committee, Vice Chair Chris Collins, Attorney Peter Murphy, School Committee Woman Latonia Naylor, School Committee Woman Maria Perez, to our hardworking homegrown Superintendent, Dan Warwick, to my good friend, President of Our Lady of the Elms College, Harry Dumais, which my oldest daughter, Cassandra, graduated from and is doing very well. We deeply appreciate the partnership and you being here today as our keynote speaker. And our thoughts and prayers go out to you for your countrymen and women at Haiti, and we wish you all the best. To all the honored guests that are on the dais, and to the teachers, the hardworking and dedicated teachers of our Springfield Public School systems, welcome back and thank you. The theme is Together We Go Far, and we have gone far, and we're going to go further. When you think of the surreal and challenging times we have faced, and you see how far that we have come, noting back 10 to 12 years ago, when our graduation rates were about 50%. Now we're hovering at about 80%. When our dropout rates 10, 12 years ago were hovering around 10 to 12%, now they're at 3%. When our test scores were lagging, now they're above the state averages. When our buildings needed work or repair or new schools to be built, over $700 million of new and rehab schools, we're in one today, has been done. And that's because of you and all of us working together to move our children and make them believe that they can and will succeed. Today we have two shining examples that are here today. James Villalobos and Amanda Rivera, who in their media days here in Springfield, I used to call Jimmy V, and Diana Ross from Central High School. They'll tell you the story. From Central High School graduates and Emmy Award-winning reporters are going to come up here to speak. But what you teachers do day in and day out, and I know it, being a proud graduate of the Springfield Public School System, is that that child that you have before you could become the next award-winning, Emmy Award-winning TV reporter, could become the next teacher, could become the next mayor, could become the next doctor, nurse, police officer, firefighter. And that's because of the motivation, the gift that you gave them to believe in themselves that they can and will achieve here, whether in the city of Springfield, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the United States of America, or even the world. And you can't put a price tag on that. It really frosts me many a times when urban centers in America are depicted in a negative light by some in our media. We have our challenges, but Springfield is a beautiful mosaic of all creed colors and backgrounds. And we don't say no to anyone. We accept anybody that walks through our door, through that classroom door, and you, the teachers, find a way to teach them, to help them, to motivate them. And many a times, you're there for them when sometimes a family member might not be there for them. And maybe you might not see that tomorrow, but I know many of you have seen it from students, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, when they say, hey, you remember me? You helped me out when I was in school. You helped me achieve. You helped me believe. You put your arm around my shoulder when I was having a tough day. And because of you, I'm now excelling in this career. That's what teaching's all about. And you do it from your head, your heart, and your gut. So with that, I wish you a fantastic school year. I deeply appreciate what you do, because together we will go far. And I wish each and every one of you and your families good health and continued success. God bless you all, and let's go get them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Sarno. And now I would like to introduce to you and bring to the podium the Vice Chair of the School Committee, Mr. Christopher Collins.
Whoa. You weren't right. You weren't kidding. It moves. Yeah. Happy New Year, everybody. It wasn't that long ago, and for many years, I sat where all of you teachers who are in your schools and paras and all of the staff going, when's this thing going to end? I got stuff to do. So for 18 months, we haven't been able to see each other at all, and today's theme, Together We Go Far, is so appropriate considering we haven't been able to see each other. So to that I will tell you, seems we'd never see ya back here where we need ya. Oh, we missed you a lot. You're the cream of the crop. Welcome back. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Have a good year, everybody.
If you know that theme song, you are showing your age. Welcome back, Carter. And now, please welcome to the podium the president of the Springfield Education Association, Tracy Little Sasanecki.
I guess I'm the new kid on the block. And how do you follow that act? I'm not going to sing, I don't think. Good morning, Springfield Public Schools. Welcome back. Let me begin by introducing myself. My name is Tracy Little Sasanecki, and I am your newly elected president of the Springfield Education Association. I have my speech written because I would forget some things. I am a 1989 MSW graduate of UConn School of Social Work, and I've been working for the Springfield Public Schools for over 25 years as a professional school counselor. I've held various roles as it pertains to my social work career. I've been a building rep for several terms on CEDM, and I've also served on their district-wide crisis team. Believe it or not, I've also worked as a crisis clinician at BHN Psychiatric Crisis for over 26 years. Prior to me working for the district, I served in a mental health facility where I was a program manager for several residential programs. I was born in Springfield, raised in Springfield, and I've committed my entire career to serving the residents of the city. I've been a part of the SEA Executive Board for 2 terms. I'm currently one of the MTA Board Directors for the Massachusetts Teachers Association. I'm a founding member of the SEA Alumni, which stands for African, Latino, Asian, Native American Committee, which is a committee of dedicated educators of colors who are advocating for building a diverse and culturally proficient environment while empowering educators. Educators of color, we are Alumni. I am a member of the District DIRE team, which stands for Diversity, Inclusion, and Racial Equity, leadership team, and committee member, which you'll hear more about. And I'm a new member to the district's Portrait of a Graduate team. For over 25 years, I, like many of you, are filled with excitement and apprehensiveness of a new school year, and at the same time with the hope and possibilities. My year started a tad bit differently than I could have ever dreamt. Instead of cleaning and organizing an office in a school building and going through 504 files, I moved into the SEA office, which, if you do not know, it's 1000 Wilbraham Road. I have to admit, I walked into our space with a wonderful team ready to continue where our previous retired President Maureen left off. By the way, it's Friday, and she already has a retired schedule of tennis and golfing. Bless her heart. Through our leadership team at the SEA office, I would like to introduce you our team members. We have Brenda Dunn, who is our vice president, Peter Reese, who is our grievance chair, Andrew Wilkins, who is our treasurer, Jen Martin was our recording secretary. She had to step down due to personal obligations. Nancy DePross is our field representative from the MTA. Our large executive board members, our legislative board members are more commonly known as building reps for the dedicated work that they continue to do on our behalf. I would also like to take a special time to acknowledge those who work in the office, who many may not know. We have Paige Lauer, who is our office manager, Joanna Fortino, who is our assistant office manager, Sandy Pellegrino is our member engagement coordinator, and Sue Fielding, who is retired, is our bookkeeper. I would also like to acknowledge the many new educators who have joined us thus far. As of yesterday, when I left the office, we were at 435 new educators to our system. Let's give them a round of applause. And besides giving them a round of applause, let's also lend them our support. Your union, your fellow educators, are here to support you in any way that we can. Our new educators committee, composed of educators in their first 5 years of service, would love for you to join, and we'll be reaching out to you soon. For our new hires that have not yet joined the union, please send us an email, and we will get in touch with you. A gentle reminder for our veteran educators and an invitation for our newly hired educators: there is an abundance of opportunity of work that we can do for our union. As I continue to welcome everyone back, I must first thank every educator here today who worked to meet the needs of our students during an extraordinary and difficult year. Even as we experienced our own challenges amid the pandemic and contentious political and social classes, we remained steadfast in our commitment to our students and to our community. That, my friend, is something that we all need to be proud of. We cannot ignore the trauma that our students and many of us have endured over the past year. We know that COVID affected the health and well-being of our families and their friends and us on the front line. The impact of this pandemic and the deep disparity is further exposed in our society are going to have a lasting effect. Fortunately, our work can also have a lasting effect, a very positive lasting effect, by paying attention to the social and emotional needs of our students who are returning to our buildings this fall. I would like to take a little personal privilege. Being a school counselor myself, I'd like to give a shout out to Dr. Yolanda Johnson and my fellow professional school counselors. We rock. Let us not forget that. Let us continue, if you haven't, to start to work together. Our union is committed to building on our successes and to fighting for students and educators. First, we need to in-person learning to be safe as possible. Wearing masks, getting vaccinated, frequent COVID testing, appropriate ventilations in schools, and allowing for physical distancing where possible are the strategies that we can use to keep our students and educators safe. We also need to have adequate resources. The state is on track for fully funding the Student Opportunity Act, which passed because you and countless other educators bought the fight to Beacon Hill. Thirdly, the SEA and Alumni remains dedicated to a diverse and inclusive learning experience. Every student and every educator must feel not only welcomed, but also valued in our learning communities. This not only extends from our classroom, but all the way through to our unions. I hope that we can commit to making a space for each other to share their ideas and knowledge that will allow us to be the best possible educators to our students and to our families. And let us not forget that we can learn from our students that we teach. Young people have been leaders in the fight for climate change. Young people have been leaders in the fight for radical racial justice. These young people are our future. Let's support them with a full and rich, authentic education that does not shy away from the facts and provides them with the tools to create and explore opportunities for growth. As I said earlier, our work has a lasting impact, not just on the students we have in the classroom this year, but on the communities that they will be shaping once they have left us. I want to end by urging all of you to make a promise. Each and every one of you that are listening to me and those of you who are in this audience. Make a promise to take care of yourself and to take care of each other. And take your 30-minute duty-free lunch. Going along, we can go fast, but it's going together that takes us far. So welcome back. Have a great year, and do not hesitate to reach out to myself or any other reps in your building. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. And now please welcome the president of the Springfield Federation of Paraprofessionals, Catherine Mastronardi.
I know, I heard this thing moves. This is going to be tricky. So good morning, everyone. It is fabulous to be in this stunning school. I cannot wait to come back and see some kind of activity here where I'm on your side of the audience. So the first thing I want to do is give a special shout out to my folks, the Springfield Federation of Paraprofessional members, the CNAs, the CODAs, the LPNs, the paraeducators, and the PTAs. You guys rock, and I am so proud to represent you. So now we come to the problem. Last night at 10 o'clock, I remembered I had to give a speech today, and this is it. So I really can't read it, so I'm just going to try to give you the basics of what I want to say. Every year, you guys know, Azelle gives us a little theme, and this year it was Together We Go Far. But actually, together we have already gone far. I cannot believe what we have done in the last 18 months. This has been unbelievable. I'm sure that nobody here had on their bingo card of life pandemic for what we'd be putting on our card for last year. And you guys should all be so proud of yourselves. We've masked, we've sanitized, we've socially distanced, we've Zoomed, we've synchronized, we've asynchronized. I don't know what we haven't done, but we have done it all without missing a beat because to us, our kids are the most important thing in the world. But, see, I'm just catching like really big letters. We got through this together, and that is how we're going to get through the upcoming school year. I know that I love my new mask, so you guys can see where I'm going with this. And we're going to have to wear masks for a while. So if there was only a way that we could think of that we might not have to wear masks anymore. And I know this has been a really difficult decision for a lot of people, and there's a lot of information out there. But I truly believe that how we're going to get through this is by being vaccinated. Please, do it for your loved ones, do it for your students, do it for yourselves, do it for the people that cannot get vaccinated. But please, whatever you do, please just do it. I would like to see your smiles again, and I'm sure that you would like to see your students smiled again. And if we can all get vaccinated and get together on this, hopefully that dream will come true soon. Oh, and another little side note. This year is municipal elections. Some of these folks on the stage are the ones that got us through this. So remember that when you're going to the voting booth. It starts at home. So always vote. It's our right. So that's my little PSA for right now. Remember to be kind. Kindness counts. Remember your loved ones. Always tell them that you love them. Never leave home without saying that. It's important to remember those that support us so that we can support the children of Springfield. So let's get back to the classrooms with the kids that we like. Is it going to be easy? No, it's not. Can we do it? Of course we can, because we are the Springfield Public Schools, and together we do what it takes to get things done. Thank you, and have a fantastic year.
Thank you so very much, Kathy. And now you are really in for a treat, Springfield Public Schools. Coming to the stage next is Karen Bolden King, a new teacher at Chestnut Tag, who will grace us with her rendition of The Greatest Love of All. Sang Karen.
Good morning. I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride to make it easier. Let the children's laughter remind us how we used to be. Everybody's searching for a hero. People need someone to look up to. I never found anyone to fulfill my needs. A lonely place to be, and so I learned to depend on me. I decided long ago never to walk in anyone's shadow. If I fail, if I succeed, at least I live as I believe. No matter what they take from me, they can't take away my dignity, because the greatest love of all is happening to me. I found the greatest love of all inside of me. The greatest love of all is easy to achieve. Learning to love yourself, it is the greatest love of all. I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride to make it easier. Let the children's laughter remind us how we used to be. I decided long ago never to walk in anyone's shadow. If I fail, if I succeed, at least I live as I believe. No matter what they take from me, they can't take away my dignity, because the greatest love of all is happening to me. I found the greatest love of all inside of me. The greatest love of all is easy that special place that you've been dreaming of, lead you to a lonely place, find your strength in love.
Great job, great job. And I love how your son accompanied you to the stage. Let me tell you a little bit about Karen. Not only is she a great singer, I did say she is a new teacher to the district, but she's not new to the district. She's been a paraprofessional for 23 years and is starting her first year as a teacher. Thank you, Tracy. You're a real testament to the upward mobility available to people here at Springfield Public Schools. The portrait of a graduate. The portrait of a graduate is the blueprint that will guide the district's next strategic plan. It is also a testament to today's theme, Together We Go Far, because of the critical role that community has played in painting this portrait and working as partners to guide the transformation of our new strategic plan. So that you can learn a little bit more about the making of the portrait and the next steps, we have a video that we'd like to share with you. So allow us about a 5-minute transition to invite our guests on the stage to have a seat in the audience so they can view the video, to lower the screen, and to swap out our podium. So at this time, I'm going to ask our stage guests to just please make your way to the first 2 rows.
learn,
Work. Thrive. Lead.
persist.
Communicate.
A portrait of a graduate is the community's vision of essential skills and attributes that students will learn before they graduate. The portrait of a graduate is intended to empower Springfield schools and community members to reimagine teaching and learning inside and outside of the schools. More than 200 people attended our community meetings. At least 700 educators participated in educator conversations. Around 50 student leaders participated, and about 1,400 people reviewed draft copies of the portrait and provided feedback.
I go back to the African proverb, it takes a village. Everybody working together forms that portrait of a graduate.
The idea of a portrait of a graduate, we've seen it going on nationally, has really been taking hold as a best practice across the country.
Community input is important because our students will be graduating from us and entering into the community. It's important for us to know exactly what the community is looking for in our next generation so that they're ready for Springfield and beyond as they move out of the schools and into the world.
One day they will be the people working in our businesses, our organizations, working in our schools. So we need to invest in them because we want them to be job ready.
The portrait of a graduate has less of an emphasis on standardized test scores, and that's quite appropriate. It's appropriate because that's where higher education is going these days. A lot of institutions are focusing less on standardized test scores and more on the fundamentals of what really predict a student's success.
There is a social justice imperative to this work. Our kids deserve and need outstanding educational opportunities and outcomes, and we as a community have a responsibility to support them in achieving those goals.
We also spent a lot of time talking about diversity, systemic racism, and having things like that be reflected in this body of work because it is so important. And we wanted to make sure that it spoke to everybody in the Springfield community.
We've been very fortunate with our Portrait of a Graduate process that we've been able to access funding from a foundation called the Barr Foundation, and they were able to provide support for a lot of the work. In particular, they gave us funding to hire an organization called the Great Schools Partnership, and that's an organization that's worked with a lot of schools and districts who have engaged in Portrait of a Graduate work.
Part of my task was to go back and meet with other lead pastors, other churches around the area, bring them into a room and get their thoughts and ideas as it relates to the Portrait of a Graduate. Hearing the feedback of our local pastors and being inside of a room with men and women that were just speaking with such genuine love because it was about students.
And what we found is the traditional pieces, the academic achievement pieces that lifelong educators like me would focus on first, they were looking for something in addition to that. And I think that was very, very important feedback because they know what our kids are going to need to succeed as part of the workforce after they graduate or after they finish college.
They want well-rounded students leaving with a high school diploma that are ready to take on whatever comes next. So from persistence to communication skills, I think there were some really great concerns that were brought up, probably mostly by parents, about financial literacy and protocols for writing emails, like little things that you may not even think are super important, but they really do have a place in a Portrait of a Graduate.
Across all the different groups we talked to, a lot about confidence, kindness, and empathy, just characteristics of being, creating opportunities in school for students to sort of develop those I guess you'd call them mindsets.
Be able to be a part of a team that was basically put together to ensure that our young people have the tools that they need and that their family members have the tools that they need for them to, be successful and to graduate and, make decisions in terms of their career paths. Do they want to go straight to work or do they want to go to college? Portrait of a Graduate made a commitment to prepare students to have choices and to be a part of the resource team to help them with those choices.
I get excited when I talk about it because I'm thinking about all the good that it's going to do. It was built and created based off their voices. Their input was what we used to actually craft this portrait.
Parental involvement is very important and key in this work because our students are with us for part of their life, but they're with their parents more than with us. It's really important for us to understand what the parents are doing outside of the classroom so that we can help enhance those learnings. This will guarantee that our students are ready for the world when they graduate from the Springfield Public Schools.
As soon as a student feels like somebody cares about them or that you're invested in them, it makes them feel better.
We can't put the responsibility of education just on the educators. It takes a neighborhood, it takes parents, it takes local organizations, local businesses, for everyone to be on the same page so that our children could be successful.
A lot of students out there need help, and really important for the English people, immigrants, to become better, and they need a lot of support for English and from school.
Education, it doesn't stop at 3:30. A lot of our students rely on community engagement activities such as community rec centers, sports, interacting with just members of the community to figure out what they like, what they're passionate about.
If we like sports, right? Just because, we start picking up a basketball and we dribble, we're not the best three-point shooter or whatnot, but you're going to sit there and practice. You're going to do 21, you're going to play horse with your friends, but you're going to practice and you're going to give it effort.
I think that we currently have existing frameworks through which people in the business community can be involved, but I think that we need to think bigger picture, think outside the box about what can we do to help drive the priorities of Portrait of a Graduate.
I'm a product of Springfield Public Schools. Like so many other people that I grew up with that I see, still invested in the city of Springfield.
I have a lot of respect for teachers, so I know that, the staff and the teachers at the Springfield Public Schools care.
If I would have had this Portrait of a Graduate at the age of 15 or even 14, the outcome of my life would have been different. I know for a fact that it would have been different.
For more than a year, Springfield Public Schools engaged in conversations with more than 2,000 Springfield educators, community members, and students to listen to their hopes and dreams for Springfield youth. The result of those conversations is the Portrait of a Graduate, a single document that lists central skills and attributes that Springfield schools, along with the community, will help students develop.
I think there's a trend across our country on Portrait of a Graduate because we have entered the 21st century. Computers and technology are working into our everyday, and we need to ensure that our students are ready to compete, not just in our community, but across the nation and across the world.
Portrait of a Graduate is the vision for how young people coming out of the Springfield School District will be empowered to seize their future and to thrive, to have all of the opportunities that are available to them in the world.
I know that our kids are going to be extremely successful, so I'm looking forward for this and hoping that the best, I know for a fact that the best is yet to come for our kids, for sure.
We need the entire community. If we're going to get the global outcomes that are being put forth by this group in our strategic plan, we're going to need the entire community to embrace it and support it.
The next step in our work is continued engagement with educators, students, and community members, and utilizing the portrait as a blueprint that will guide the district's strategic plan for the next 5 years. A strategic plan that defines new ways to inspire and empower our students.
Learn.
Work. Thrive. Lead.
Persist.
Communicate.
Have the academic knowledge and skills to critically understand the world, form opinions, and solve problems.
I can identify and pursue career pathways that empower and sustain me. I can independently navigate the world as an empathetic and respectful adult.
I will lead with confidence, empathy, and kindness in my family, my community, in Springfield, and beyond.
I practice resilience, self-awareness, and advocacy to navigate challenges and new situations.
I listen to others and convey ideas with respect, openness, and clarity.
So we are not alone, Springfield Public Schools. We have a whole community beside us, supporting us, guiding us, and watching us. And I know these lights are really bright. I can't see everyone in the audience, but I know some members of the portrait are here, the working team. I see Denise Jordan, Executive Director of the Springfield Housing Authority, Rhonda Jacobs, Principal of the Alternative Schools. So thank you for joining us today. And our next speaker, who I will introduce, will be the superintendent. You know, when we first began navigating the district closure, what seems like a lifetime ago, the superintendent often repeated a single sentiment: we are in this together. And sure enough, Springfield Public Schools, you proved that by working together, we can go far. The lengths to which so many of you went to ensure that your students continue to feel connected was nothing short of mind-blowing. Your creativity and dedication shined through brightly. Working hard behind the scenes to create a landscape where you could make that possible was our superintendent. When COVID-19 hit, Superintendent Warwick made great use of his more than 40 years of experience as a Springfield Public Schools educator to put in place systems and mechanisms to keep our district moving forward while the world reeled, admitting often that the situation was unlike anything he had ever known. He will credit you with the district's success, but there can be no success without a leader clearing the path for that to happen. Ladies and gentlemen, our leader, Superintendent Warwick.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a new school year. I'm excited to welcome our new staff members and welcome back our returning educators and our entire SPS family. I'd like to start my remarks by recognizing one of our greatest supporters, the Education Mayor, Mayor Dominic Sarno. The members of our school committee and all of those here assembled today. I'm especially thrilled to recognize our guest of honor, Dr. Harry DeMay. It is very fitting to have President DeMay with us today because he and the Elms College exemplify our theme of Together We Go Far. When Dr. DeMay became president of the Elms College, he not only built on the existing partnerships between SPS and the college, but he created new ones based on the needs of our district and in the best interests of our students and our staff. You will hear more about those impactful developments when he is introduced as our keynote speaker a little later in the program. Thank you, Harry, for being with us today. You certainly are in good Elms College company, as many of our staff and administrators are proud alumni of the college, including our very own school committee woman, Latonia Naylor, and my wife, Mary. And now to you,
the staff and faculty of the Springfield Public Schools. Times have been tough, but we made it through because of you. You held steadfast in your belief in the strength and resilience of your colleagues, your students, and yourselves. It is only because of you that we continue to forge ahead despite the monumental challenges of the past 18 months. I know it was not easy, but what you achieved during the pandemic has been awe-inspiring and unprecedented. But you have been working hard for years. Some 10 years ago, we made a promise to our community. The Springfield Promise and the Springfield Promise 2 were the names of our former strategic plans that served as a blueprint for a decade. Our promise, a culture of equity and proficiency. Here is how your hard work delivered on that promise. Since 2012, our four-year graduation rate increased by more than 20 percentage points, with an average above 80% for our comprehensive high schools, among the best improvements in the state. Our annual dropout rate has been cut by 70%, from 10% to 3%. That's the best improvement in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Our MCAS results indicate we are closing gaps. Consider these statistics. We closed 31% of the gap with the state in ELA grades 3 to 8, and 21% of the gap in math. We eliminated the gap between African American and white students and closed 34% of the gap between Latinx and white students in grades 3 to 8 ELA. We nearly eliminated the gap between African American and white students and closed 30% of the gap between Latinx and white students in grades 3 to 8 math. Our SAT participation rate has increased by 147%. Average daily attendance increased by 10%, and chronic absenteeism was cut by 17%. Out-of-school suspensions were cut by 56%, and student arrests have been cut by 87%. That's because of your work. Thank you. That doesn't mean our work is done, not by any means. But these statistics prove we are moving the needle in the right direction. You should be very proud. The gains we have experienced simply would not have been possible without the important contributions made by every staff member in every space, from boardrooms to custodial closets, from nurses' offices to cafeterias, from classrooms to sports fields. And as we delivered quality education remotely, you pivoted and reached new milestones. You achieved an attendance rate of 92.3% during the pandemic. 25,000 computer devices were distributed to our students. 4,000 mobile hotspots were given out. 23,000 calls, chats, and emails were answered by our technology help desk. Nearly 23,000 COVID tests were given. And this is the best one of all. 8.7 million meals were provided to families in a community with significant food insecurity issues. So now, as we design our next strategic plan, I am excited about our Portrait of a Graduate, which is the community's vision of essential skills and attributes students will need before they graduate. I am grateful to those of you who answered the call to ensure that, as we move forward, our curriculums, practices, priorities, and assessments align with the portrait. I know that educator groups have been meeting and working hard. A cohort of schools has already stepped up to lead this work. I am also grateful for the community vision and voice represented in this document. The community's handprint defines the Portrait of a Graduate. I would like to thank those of you who have served as members of our Portrait of a Graduate working team representing higher education, the business community, educators, and city residents. Even as we work to design our next strategic plan, we start this year with clear objectives. In every school, every day, we will focus on accelerating student learning, advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion, and expanding parent engagement. In closing, I'd like to quote John Fitzgerald Kennedy. He once said, "Children are the world's most valuable resource and its best hope for the future." I know we all believe this, or none of us would be here today. And I remind all of you to be kind to yourself, lead with compassion, and to trust and rely on one another, because together we go far. Before I close, I just was absolutely in awe as I came into the Conservatory of the Arts today. The work that was done in this building, and the staff here today have just done such a fabulous job. We were in some buildings that needed a lot of work before, but now we have a state-of-the-arts building, and I'll tell you what, this auditorium is second to none anywhere. So congratulations to the Conservatory of the Arts staff. Thank you. But that's just one example of the investments in the public school buildings across this city. In the last 10 years, led by our mayor and school committee, we've invested over $700 million in building programs working with the MSBA, the most in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And when have you seen more dollars flow to Springfield than Boston before? Not just new buildings. You know, we just had a great opening this week at Brightwood in Lincoln. And as we are moving to start that school on Monday, we're already digging in Mason Square and working on our new Homer in DeBerry. But, you know, absolutely incredible. But we also invested in our other schools, and we have a lot of schools. We've done over 25 schools with an accelerated repair program with MSBA. Again, the most in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. That's the investment our mayor has put forward during his administration. So I just want to thank you, Mayor, because it's incredible. And in Springfield, we put our money where our mouth is. May God richly bless you and your families, our students and their families, and may Monday morning bring the start of another successful school year. Go get 'em.
Thank you, Superintendent Warwick. Please keep those selfies coming. Remember, the email address where you can send them to is springfieldmaschools@gmail.com. And now it is my privilege to introduce our guest speaker. Dr. Harry Dumais has served as president of Elms College since 2017. Upon his arrival, Dr. Dumais began conversations with local school districts to learn more about their challenges and how Elms College could poise itself to address them. In 2019, and as a direct result of those listen and learn tours, Dr. Dumais launched the Center for Equity in Urban Education to increase the number and diversity of qualified educators and school leaders here in Springfield and the greater area, appointing nationally recognized educator Dr. Tyra Good as the center's first faculty director. Committed to opening doors of opportunity and access to historically underserved populations, Dr. Dumais partnered with STIC President Dr. Cook that same year, forming a collaboration that now offers several accelerated bachelor degree programs in computer science. This year, Dr. Dumais became one of 13 college presidents nationwide recognized for their leadership in the areas of diversity, equity, and inclusion by the Association of Colleges and Universities. His work was touted for closing the equity gap in student success, improving diversity in hiring practices, creating more equitable hiring policies, and increasing the sense of well-being and inclusion among students of historically underrepresented populations. For us, here at Springfield Public Schools, Dr. Dumais has been a committed partner and a fierce advocate of equity for our students, expressing his strong belief in their potential and his high expectations for us as their educators and supporters. He holds a PhD in Higher Education Administration from Boston College, an MBA from Boston University with a graduate certificate in corporate finance, and a Master of Arts degree in Public Administration from Framingham State University. He earned his Bachelor of Science degree, magna cum laude, from Lincoln University. Dr. Dumais is a proud native of Haiti, and like nearly 1/3 of ELM students, he too is first generation. I present Dr. Dumais.
Thank you, Isel, for this great introduction, and good morning, everyone. Education Mayor Dominic Sarno, I like this title. Superintendent Warwick, Assistant Superintendent Martinez, Vice Chair and members of the Office of the Superintendent, Vice Chair and member of the Springfield School Committee, school leaders, teachers, administrators, staff. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the kind thoughts about Haiti. Haiti has had its share of tragedies, and one of the things that most people don't know is that I usually get a note from Mayor Sarno wishing me his thoughts and prayers when one of those things happens. And as we gather here this morning, our heart goes out to the victims of all tragedies, those in Haiti, as well as the military families whose loved ones were victims of the bombing in Afghanistan. It is truly an honor for me to be here with the Springfield Public School family for Convocation 2021-2022. The importance of this moment for the Springfield Public Schools is not lost on me, whether we focus on the here and now or whether we look into the future. The here and now, of course, is that you are welcoming all students in person 5 days a week after the ups and downs of the past academic year and a half. This is not a trivial matter, and it brings trepidations to students, to families, and of course to all of you, the superintendents, principals, teachers, professional staff, paraprofessionals, and everyone in the Springfield Public Schools community. But even as SPS is moving forward with this challenging undertaking, you are also boldly looking into the future. With the conclusion of the Portrait of a Graduate project and the beginning of your strategic planning process, you are envisioning the Springfield Public Schools for the future, something for which the Springfield community and indeed the greater Springfield area counts on you. Thus, I'm grateful to Superintendent Warwick for giving me the honor and the opportunity to be with you and speak with the 4,000 members of the SPS family at such a pivotal moment in your life as an organization. I'm grateful to Chief Communication Officer Azal Kavan for extending the invitation and providing very helpful background information. And so I want to talk about 4 things this morning. First, how important your work as educators is, as exemplified by how education changed my life. Second, the exciting promise of the Portrait of a Graduate. Third, some advice for the next steps in that important effort. And finally, a commitment to support that work in any way that I can. Now, as much as we all hate to be talking about COVID, we cannot ignore it because it continues to define the context in which we live. After learning about a brand new field, the science of COVID transmission, after doing everything that we could to keep ourselves, our families, our communities, and our organizations safe, we all breathed a deep sigh of relief when the vaccine became available. I, for one, thought that this fall semester would be a lot smoother. That was obviously a calculation that did not take into account the ability of the virus to mutate and the unpredictability of human behavior. But here we are, once again, talking about face masking, distancing, enhanced hygiene, testing, quarantining, isolating, all the things that we know reduce the rate of transmission of the COVID virus. Through the stages of grief, we've learned to accept that COVID is not going away and that we must learn to mitigate rather than eliminate this virus, at least for the short term. If there is any good thing that came out this past year, it is that at some point, each of us was forced to step back and think about what is truly important. In taking stock of what's truly important, our society had an even greater awakening about the importance of schools and teachers. Schools play a vital role in keeping our economy open, up and running. Parents rely on schools not only to provide education, but supervision, meals, and sometimes health care while they're working. Teachers, staff, and administrators commit long hours and often their own personal resources to provide for children in their classrooms. Kids of all ages need time, attention, and individual care to be successful learners. That reality was made irrefutably clear when parents of school-aged children throughout the world suddenly found themselves grappling with the complex tasks involved in keeping their children focused and learning. New life was breathed into the concept of the teacher as a hero. The spring 2020 issue of the Elms magazine features several of our local heroes, including Elms alumni, on the teaching front lines. What is not often said and therefore not well understood is that behind every hero teacher, there is a hero superintendent, a hero assistant superintendent, a hero principal, an army of hero professionals and paraprofessionals who provide this teacher the environment and the support to do heroic work. As we say at Elms College, it is indeed a systems approach. All of the elements need to be here, and it takes a village. But boy, when it works, we all know how magical the results can be. And whenever I think about my 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old self, I know how magical the results can be. I grew up in the small town of Wanamint in the northeastern part of Haiti. When I was growing up, our town did not have a high school. If your parents could afford it, you would have to move from my hometown to one of the two major cities of Haiti, either 3 hours or 8 hours by bus, to go to high school. For the few who made that move, our confidence in our ability was not necessarily very high, coming from a small, remote town to compete with the kids from the big cities. My primary school was run by the Brothers for Christian Education. In my last year of primary school, we had a new teacher, Brother Gilles, who was transferred from a school in one of those big cities. And Brother Gilles really changed our lives. He gave us the best gift that you could give any child: confidence in our own abilities. He taught us how to do quick mental math. He encouraged us to read and read and read. When I transferred to one of the best schools in Haiti, a school with some of the richest kids, I realized that not only was I holding my own, but my remote small-town school had prepared me even better than the majority of my peers. That gave me a confidence which remained with me throughout my studies, that I could indeed compete anywhere with anyone. That would prove to be true eventually, but not for a while. In fact, things were pretty bleak when I finished high school. That was 1987, and Haitians were still dealing with the overthrow of Baby Doc Duvalier. Schools and universities were closed, and young people like me did not know what would become of us. It was then that the USAID announced a scholarship program for U.S. colleges. Tens of thousands of young Haitians applied. I did as well, and was fortunate to be selected as one of 40 recipients. A few months later, I flew to Lincoln University in Massachusetts, not Pennsylvania, in Missouri, not Pennsylvania, with a 2.5-year scholarship. Don't ask me why it was 2.5 years. I have no idea what the calculation of the administrators at the USAID were. But at the end of 2 years, I had accumulated nearly 3 years of college credit. My advisor, Mr. Woods, advocated for me to obtain one more semester of funding, which allowed me to obtain my bachelor's degree in 3 years. That college education opened the door for me to 2 master's degrees and a PhD while working full-time and raising a family. And here I am today, the living example of Horace Mann's statement that, quote, education is the great equalizer of the conditions of men. Now, I know that I'm preaching to the choir about the power of education to transform lives. I know that somehow, it is the same story for each one of us here. And that is why we are all so determined to pay it forward and open doors for others. And that is why the portrait of the graduate project is so important and full of promise for the future Springfield children and young people. Let me take a moment to congratulate Superintendent Warwick, Chief Information Officer Paul Foster, who led the project, Assistant Superintendent Martinez, Chief Communication Officer Isel Cavan, all of my other colleagues who participated in the project, everyone in the superintendent office, for really taking the time to ensure that this process was inclusive and to listen to the voices of as many stakeholders as possible. Throughout my participation in that process, I got an opportunity to meet a lot of these folks from communities, churches, businesses, and of course, the educational community. I got to listen
and to learn from all of them. And as a result, I became convinced that the portrait of a Springfield School graduate that was sketched through that process is a great vision. But now the work begins. The portrait is the dream. Having dared to dream the dream, the Springfield Public Schools is embarking on the important planning work of figuring out the ecosystem that needs to be put in place to turn that dream into a reality. I'm sure that all of you will be asked to contribute at your own level to this tremendous work, which is so important for current and future students. In ensuring that Springfield School students learn the critical academic knowledge and skills needed to succeed anywhere, communicate effectively and convincingly, persist no matter what the challenges, thrive as respectful and respected young people, lead their peers in their community, and work to achieve their career goals and aspirations, you will provide them the tools to make it possible, the tools that made it possible for this kid from Wanamette, Haiti, to stand here today. You will help them build their own success stories. Now, we need to be clear-eyed about the work ahead. We are proud of the successes that the Springfield School, the public schools have achieved, and we heard a lot of them from Superintendent Warwick. But for as much as we've accomplished, we also know the statistics about how our young people achieve in reading, writing, math, career achievement. For having spoken to many educational, philanthropic, and political leaders in the greater Springfield area, I know that we are not satisfied with where we are with those data and statistics, as Superintendent Warwick mentioned. The danger is in hearing about the statistics too often is that they create a mental model for what we expect of our youth. Psychologists have written about the danger of mental models and the risks of being focused on what we expect to see. Mental models are strategies that the brain uses for handling complicated problems. They help us to function in the world so that we don't have to rethink through everything all the time. But they are also the causes of the implicit biases that the Harvard psychologist Mazarin Banaji and her colleague Anthony Greenwald have demonstrated over decades now. Most of us are familiar with that work. In another important work about the limitations of our mental models, a group of psychologists at Harvard performed an interesting and disturbing experiment that proved that we can be so focused and comfortable with our intellectual framework that we ignore blatant evidence that does not comport with it. That experiment is recounted in the Lawrence Gonzalez book, Deep Survival. Quote, they showed a video of basketball players passing the ball and asked people to count the number of passes made by the team wearing either the white or black uniforms. In the middle of the video, one of two strange things happened. Either a woman with an umbrella or a person in a gorilla costume unexpectedly walked through the center of the action, remaining clearly visible for about 5 seconds. The subjects of the experiment were asked afterward if they noticed anything odd. 35% of the observers failed to notice the woman with the umbrella, even though her presence was obvious to anyone not engaged in the counting task, end quote. Gonzalez equates the effect of that experiment with what happens in magic tricks. Magic confirms the idea that you see what you expect to see. Such a closed attitude can prevent new perceptions from being incorporated into the model, end quote. Gonzalez, whose book is about individuals who succeed under extremely harsh circumstances, conclude that, quote, the most successful people or organizations are open to the changing nature in their environment. They are curious to know what's up, end quote. Thus, as satisfied as we are about the wonderful work accomplished to complete the portrait of a Springfield graduate, I would caution us not to be so enamored with it that we stop paying attention to other clues in the environment. It is important to have a vision, and furthermore, to have a plan to accomplish that vision. At the same time, it is critical to ensure that the vision and plan do not become one of those mental models that make us rigid and prevent us from incorporating new information. I know that the leadership of the Springfield School District would not be satisfied with that. I think that I can speak for all of higher education, and particularly for my colleagues in the colleges and universities of Greater Springfield, in stating that we are grateful to the Springfield schools for undertaking both aspects of this work, the here and now and future vision. I can certainly speak for Elms College in stating that we stand ready to assist you in any way that we can. The primary aspect of our work in supporting you is, of course, to prepare good educators, teachers, as well as school leaders. If you don't know about the Elms College Center for Equity in Urban Education, it means that we haven't done a good enough job in speaking about it. It is a resource for the region to equip all teachers with the tools needed to be well prepared to teach in our urban settings. In that, we partner closely with the Springfield schools to identify resources needed to bring diversity to the Western Massachusetts teacher workforce so that more students can see themselves in their teachers. Therefore, if you are a paraprofessional who want to obtain your teacher's certification, or if you are a teacher who wants to obtain your master's degree, Elms traditional programs, as well as our new Cynthia A. Lyons Center for Equity in Urban Education, is there to help you. All right, that was my PSA for today. This is an exciting moment for the Springfield Public Schools, and you are embarking on great, important work. Congratulations on doing the participatory work needed to lay out an ambitious agenda. The secret formula for those who succeed is that they set bold goals for themselves, and they work unapologetically and relentlessly in pursuing those goals. To paraphrase President Kennedy, you didn't set the goals of the portrait of a graduate because they are easy. As you welcome students back in person in the classroom, and as you lay the ground for the future of the Springfield Public Schools, I'm confident that you will engage in both aspects of this endeavor, taking heed of the lessons in resilience and solidarity that we've learned in the past year and a half. As I conclude, I want to share with you the post-COVID wishes of author Edwidge Danticat, Elms College's 2021 commencement speaker, for our graduates. After describing to them the Haitian tradition of kombit, it is a way in which poor Haitian farmers come together and take turn working each other's lands in solidarity. After describing that to them, she said to them, quote, "When this particular plague has at least been dormant, I hope that we all become better custodians for each other. Both post-pandemic and post-graduation, I hope you will never forget that your life is most survivable and, dare I say, happiest when it functions like a kombit," end quote. I wish all of you a wonderful kombit in the academic year ahead and in your future work for the children and youth of the Springfield Public Schools. May God bless all of you in your sacred work.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dumais, for those thoughtful and encouraging words as we embark on the new school year. Thank you so much for joining us today. And now we will come to the part of our program where we start to close out. And our last two speakers will tug on the heartstrings of many teachers and make you swell with pride because they have been products of Springfield Public Schools from elementary through graduation. Amanda Rivera and James Villalobos attended Springfield Public Schools their entire lives, graduating from Central in 2013. Each went on to further their education in the interest area fostered during high school in journalism and media production classes. Amanda at Stick and James at UMass Amherst. Fast forward, this summer, the pair won a coveted Emmy Award. An Emmy Award. Now professional journalists, the pair won the award for their continuous news coverage of a story in January 2020. They titled the series, "It Takes a Village. Community Unites to Save a Kidnap Victim." At the time of the story, Villalobos was a reporter at Western Mass News, and Rivera was a videographer there. Currently, Rivera is a photojournalist at WPLG Local 10 in Miami, and Villalobos is a cyber journalist, cybersecurity communications consultant for MassMutual, also living in Florida. All the way from Florida, we will hear from the both of them now. Coming to the stage first, please welcome Amanda Rivera.
Good morning, everyone. It feels so good to be back home, and even more so to be speaking to all of you. I am a product of Springfield Public Schools, and I say that proudly because I wouldn't be where I'm at today without many things, but a big one being the role in every teacher that I've had played. Throughout elementary and middle school, I had teachers who supported and encouraged any interest that I had. They made me believe that I could do anything I put my mind to from an early age. Some teachers, including Mrs. Brown, Ms. Shea, Mr. Sibley, rest in peace, and just some of the teachers I remember fondly, not just due to the subject that they taught, but for being patient, supportive, and kind. That's all it takes to leave an impact sometimes. So you are all leaving a mark, whether you realize it or not. This goes for staff, administrators, principals, everyone. Going into high school, my interest had turned towards wanting to pursue a career in criminal justice. I wanted to be a lawyer and eventually a judge. All because I felt I was good at debating and wanted to be the boss of the courtroom. Oh. But life had other plans in store. And it came in the form of a randomly assigned class, a class and a subject I never thought much of till that point. A video production class, taught by a single teacher, Mr. Adamopoulos, aka Mr. A. This is the class that I will also end up meeting James. Mr. A was always so enthusiastic and passionate in what he taught. It's something I'd always remember him for as a teacher. He uncovered a whole skill set and passion James and I didn't realize we had, and he did it with patience. When it came to writing assignments, for example, James was great at it. I hated it. I would turn those assignments in late. It just wasn't my strong suit. But I really enjoyed the video and editing side of things, something I would have never expected, and something that Mr. A really worked with us, our strengths and weaknesses. I was 14 then. I'm 26 now. And I have not stopped editing video, shooting video, since his class 12 years ago. Mr. A introduced me into what I am now happily doing for a living. That's the power you all have. Be it with the subject you teach or just believing in your students, your leaving an impact is inevitable. So much so, if you've ever been the type to want to leave a legacy, you chose the right profession. As for me, it was a little scary going into journalism, despite it being what I enjoyed. You're told that it's not the most highest paying type of work to get into, it's not profitable, it's competitive, you're gonna struggle. But I was lucky, not only growing up in a home, but also being with teachers since kindergarten all the way up to high school, who always emphasize that I can truly do anything I put my mind to. And I did. Within 3 years of being in news, I made my way to the Miami news market, a very hard, competitive market to get into, and out of all the stations, I'm one of the youngest videographers out there. But most importantly, I am the only female of color videographer in my newsroom, something I take great pride in as a Latina woman from Springfield, Massachusetts. That's what makes the teachers, staffs, administrators, principals of Springfield Public Schools so special. Springfield is full of talent and potential, and you all help unearth that, despite any negative perception of the city by outsiders. The Central class of 2013 alone, my graduation class, I feel is full of so much talent. So many of my fellow former classmates have gone on to be successful business owners, creatives, doctors, and even teachers. Same for the classes before and after my graduation class. You guys did that. And I hope whenever you see a former student doing well, you take your well-deserved credit, because together we go far. It's the diverse, dynamic, and dedicated individuals like yourself that do the work you're doing here, to make kids believe in themselves, whether they get that support from home, and whether people outside of Springfield think they're capable. Because if there's one thing kids born here want to do, whether they like school or not, is prove people wrong. Before I wrap up, I just want to recognize a group of educators that have gone over and beyond for my brother who just graduated from Central High School this year. My brother was a part of the LINKS program, and Ms. Pope, Ms. Molly Peters, and Ms. Sullivan have been exceptional. My brother has autism, and it has meant so much to see these three work as hard as they do, not only for my brother, but for all their students. I'm sure I could speak on behalf of all the LINKS families when I say thank you for choosing your profession and being here for all the LINKS kids. Also, thank you to all of you who are watching both in person and remotely for the role you play. As a collective, you are shaping the next generation. Even on the worst days, your tireless work both in and outside of school is not in vain. You just might have to wait till your students grow up a bit before you see the true fruits of your labors, but it's there. But in the meantime, stay safe, stay strong, and have a great school year.
Thank you so much, Amanda. And now, please welcome James Villalobos.
I was hoping Amanda would guide me up like Karen's son, but we're going to work on that. Well, wow, these lights really are bright. Good morning, everyone. It's weird being in front of people again, especially when you work remotely. You're not used to seeing people, so this is different and new for me. Thank you for being here. Let me stay close to this mic. Thank you for being here, and for those watching remotely, I believe the camera's up there. Really appreciate you all tuning in. I was told back as a reporter that I speak really fast, so I'm going to work on that, and hopefully that's not the case today. As Amanda said, I am so excited to be back in Springfield, and although I no longer live here, this will always be home to me. My family still lives here. My sisters and I graduated from Springfield Public Schools. My nephews now attend these schools. And in just a few short years, my niece will too. And I couldn't be more excited for them because I know they're in good hands. You see, growing up, everyone trashed Springfield, and I wanted to do something to change that as a teenager, but as you can imagine, I was so limited. I mean, I was just a teenager. Except Gen Zers, I'm telling you, they're going to change the world. Truth be told, I thought I wanted to be a politician growing up as a way to change the things, and I have one of my former teachers as proof, Sharon Nieves. I hope you're tuning in. I now have permission to call her Sharon. And early on, and I'm talking 8th grade, she had me start working on a resume. To be honest today, I wish I could see that because I can't imagine that 8th grade me had much to offer. But the reality is, it shows just how committed Mrs. Nieves was to helping me be successful. Then I went on to Central, as Amanda spoke about, and I took a broadcast journalism class. It was technically called video production, but we were doing broadcast journalism with our teacher, Mr. Adamopoulos, who we called Mr. A. I got my first dose of news by participating in our daily televised morning show, which was called AM Central. From that, my whole perspective on what I wanted to do in life changed, and that's thanks to him. I started paying more attention to the media, specifically the way that the local news and the way that things were getting covered in my community, our community. I realized that the news was having a lasting impact on the way our community was being perceived by others. We hear it all the time from those that don't live in this city. And that perception is something I eventually grew up wanting to change. When it comes to the Emmy Award, I really don't feel like it belongs to me. I was just simply the voice of this community during that awful breaking news situation. I had sources relaying tons of information to me, and I was just simply doing my job of getting it out there. It was, for me personally, such a scary time standing there and literally listening to this family, the friends and family gathering, and they're screaming and they're crying. You can only imagine, for me, it just gave me so much purpose to do everything that I can in that moment. So as I scrambled to get whatever I can confirmed again, I was drowning in notifications. Amanda's my proof of that day. It's still a blur. I just wanted to do anything that I can to get that victim back home safe and with her family. And this community They took all that information, they acted on that information, and they literally stepped up for this young person and her family. This was not the only time that we were seeing the city's true colors. Between the Ashim Bailey disappearance and this kidnapping, this community has proven that that they care about our young people and that we really do look out for each other. But most importantly, we are not the city that for too long we've been portrayed as. Growing up, I saw that not a lot of the reporters even looked like me or looked like Amanda, or realistically like the majority of the Springfield population, yet they were telling our stories. I started questioning, why would they care about us when, one, they weren't from here, and two, they probably don't understand our experience, and three, they most likely don't even live in this area. These were the kind of conversations that Mr. A and I would have. And that's why, as I pursued my career as a reporter here in Springfield, I knew that I had a larger responsibility to get things right. And no, I don't mean factually right, although yes, ethically, that was important, and anyone that followed my reporting knows I never strayed away from the facts. When I say get things right, I mean I wanted to show the true experience, the real stories of this community that for far too long would have been ignored or just simply not told. I'd be lying if I said I didn't have some battles that I fought with management to make sure that our stories were told. But I'll be honest, they were worth it, and I do not regret it. You see, I never became a politician, so I didn't have the ability to change policy directly, despite countless teachers telling me that they really do see me becoming one. I did, however, have the ability to advocate and give a voice to the voiceless, to those in this community, and tell the stories that would hopefully cause politicians to act. Viewers always told me they loved my compassion in my reporting. And the truth is, that's a trait I learned very early on, thanks to Mr. A. We talked about the importance of compassion in journalism and how the media severely lacked it. And in my opinion, till this day, they still do. And as you can imagine, through our conversations, that's something that I began paying more close attention to. Unfortunately, during my sophomore year of high school, Mr. A and his 10-year-old son, Gus, they were in a kayak accident. Unfortunately, his son was killed when their kayak was struck by another boat. You can imagine the toll that this took on him and the attention that this tragedy received in the media. We had countless difficult and heavy conversations that were always engraved in the back of my mind each time I covered difficult, controversial, or emotional stories. It was early on that I learned the lasting impact that tragedies have on victims and how quickly the media just moved on to the next headline, even though that impact struck with them. It came as no surprise to Mr. A that days after the Sandy Hook shooting happened, it was our senior year, I drove to Newtown and did some reporting for his class. You can imagine I was just a high schooler there with the camera. No one really wanted to talk to me, and I understood. I always understood when victims did not want to speak. But in the months and years to follow, I developed relationships with families that lost loved ones, and yes, even a teacher that survived that shooting that I still remain in contact with till this day. As if I didn't already admire teachers and all the work that they do, learning her experience opened my eyes even more to just how selfless our teachers are. I'll be honest, if I wasn't in my current role with Mass Mutual, my plan B truly was teaching. Knowing that I was beginning to question my career as a reporter for various reasons, I started substitute teaching in the fall of 2019 because I wanted to get a feel for it, and I wanted to see if it's something that I could really see myself doing. And I can honestly say I was just a sub, but I loved it. Yes, don't get me wrong, I get it. I was a student before, and I used to do the same thing. You walk into a class, you see the sub at the desk, you're like, hey, it's lit, we don't have to do any work, we've got a sub. No. I quickly learned it's a balance, and you really just have to develop rapport with the students. You show them you care about them, and really just invest the time in them. And that's something that so many of our teachers in the school district are already doing. However, in my case, it was easier said than done because it was a little more awkward having to explain why you're there teaching their class when you're a news reporter. God, that was always awkward. But truth be told, and I'm not just saying this so that you can give my nephews good grades, Springfield really does have some great teachers. To this day, I stay in touch with many teachers because I respect what you do, I appreciate what you do, and I know and have seen firsthand just how hard you all work. Most importantly, I know for a fact you all care about the young people in this city. When for more than a year I covered the disappearance and death of my classmate, Ashim Bailey, I was hearing from teachers who told me they were following the coverage and that they wanted to thank me. You can only imagine how bittersweet it was to cover his memorial service and see Central teachers there, including Mr. Rice and Miss LaPointe, who's now Mrs. Donato. They didn't need to be there, but they chose to be, even years after Sheem and I had graduated. To me, that speaks volumes about how much they and countless teachers across this school district care about their students, past and present. You've heard this already, and I really don't want to preach to the choir, but you all do have the opportunity to change lives. You did it for me, you did it for Amanda, and in turn, by doing so, you really are helping our communities and obviously society in the long run. I hope that we are an example of that. Mr. A, we were just texting this morning. We still stay in touch till this day, despite now being retired. He's one of the very first people I texted after we got word that we won the Emmy. That man had a huge impact on the direction of my life and taught me many of the skills that ultimately helped make me a successful journalist, and in turn, most importantly, helped me better represent and unite our community through my storytelling. He truly became more than just a teacher. He really is a friend. I respected his passion as a teacher and, truthfully, his strength as a human. I will never forget when I was working as a reporter in Northern California, and my friend Mariah McNamara, who is also a former Mr. A student, and now she's a teacher at Central, she texted me to tell me how Mr. A's wife, Helen, had passed away from cancer. After knowing the impact the death of his son had on him, I got on the next flight back home to make sure that I was going to be there at her funeral. I told my boss it was non-negotiable. Look, I get it. Not every day will be easy, and there will be days that you question your purpose and whether or not your work means anything to the students. Every career has that. That's just the reality of it. Viewers never saw the battles I was having when it came to my journalism career. I have seen, and most importantly, experienced the impact you all can have, and I really, truly hope you all realize it too on those challenging days. Sure, college taught me more on the journalism skills. I will give them that. But most importantly, Mr. A was the one that taught me the life lessons that made me the man who I am today. The importance of compassion, working hard, representation, and always staying humble. I promise you, I'm sorry I keep bumping into this mic, but I promise you that the conversations you have this school year will stick with students for years to come, and it will shape them as they work to reach their best potential. I truly, truly wish I had the time to shout out every single teacher that contributed to my journey, but the reality is they all know who they are. And all I can say is I hope I've made you proud. I wouldn't be standing here today, Amanda and I wouldn't be standing up here today were it not for all the guidance that you all provided us growing up. Thank you for your time, attention, your passion, your support, but most importantly, being there for countless youth. For some, as you all know, unfortunately, home isn't where they find love and care. It's in the classroom. It's been a rough year and a half, but now more than ever, they need you. We all need you. Because as this trophy says, it takes a village.
Thank you so much, and thank you for bringing the Emmy so we could all see it. Thank you for using your vacation time to travel to be here with us today. I don't think that there's anything more that needs to be said out of the words of former students, the impact that your work will have as you open the doors on Monday morning to the future. So we are closing out our program. I would be remiss if I didn't give just a couple quick shout outs, so if you please indulge me. Marcos, thank you. You've been amazing. Next year we'll have a performance. Liz, thank you for sharing your space with me. I appreciate that. Jose in security, you were awesome. John, the custodian, you were amazing. Logan and Pan, our ushers for today, thank you so much. The entire conservatory staff was just welcoming. I want to shout out my small but mighty team, Lucila Santana and Ruth Lozado. And of course, Focus Springfield, who's always here for us. So Springfield Public Schools, welcome to the 2021 school year. Together we will go far.
You tell this town ain't got no heart. You can't get a chance. The sunny side of the street is dark. You can't get a chance. Maybe that's 'cause it's midnight and the dark of the moon besides. Maybe the dark is from your eye. 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 You know you got such dark eyes.